December. We're so grateful that y'all are here. Before we start, I just would like a minute of silence for Miss Paula's husband, if you guys don't mind. Miss Paula, know that your sodality, brothers and sisters, are praying for you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Adler, thank you. Please do us the honors to introduce Sister Kearney.
Yes. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for your leadership as president of the Children of Mary Sodality. So we are honored to have Sister Bonnie Kearney here, a religious of the Sacred Heart. And she is a very brave person because she drove in from New Orleans this morning, and you all know what that traffic is like between here and New Orleans. So Sister Kearney was here about 10 years ago, and you were in the upper school at the academy.
And I taught the boys too.
Oh, I didn't know that. It was before my time. Well, that's wonderful. So Sister Kearney does many things for the Society of the Sacred Heart, and she even finds time, I presume you're still on the board of trustees for the Fenstead Center?
Yes.
And so she devotes a lot of time serving that organization. So we are so grateful for you being here today. And y'all say a special prayer, please, for Sister Lear's mother. Sister Lear could not be with us this morning. Her mother she's in hospice still. Yes, we'll need to pray for her. It's a difficult time for the family. So, but why don't we begin, because you have to drive back to New Orleans. So we're grateful for your time and being with us here today, Sister Kearney. Thank you again.
I want to say thank you for having me. And thank you for following directions. As I said, I'm a former teacher, so I put this down. I didn't want you to turn it over. Hint, hint. That's a little bit of control. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Our Lady, who I think it's very appropriate in Advent to be talking about her. But I'm going to talk about her a little bit differently, I believe. And you're children of Mary, so it seems appropriate to be thinking about Mary. So if you take a moment to look at the picture, pictures are always good. I don't know, could you raise your hand, how many of you have ever seen the picture to the right? 3 people. All right. These are both by Pauline Perdrau. One is Mater, that you all know and love, and one is Mater at St. John's house, Mater the Elder. She painted quite a few pictures of the same Mater over and over again. I know you have one, but this was her last one. And I'm not going to read what's there, but I give it to you because it's sort of what I'm going to be talking about. We change. We change in how we see our saints, whether it's St. John Brookman's or Mary. We change as we grow and develop, and it's clear from the picture that she had a core. She knew what Mary was doing with her life, but she also allowed her to change in her spirituality and therefore in her art. So I offer you that because here we are in December. We had the Immaculate Conception. Yesterday we had Our Lady of Guadalupe. You know, we're really Our Ladying a lot. We're going to get to the Nativity, which is, of course, Jesus, but not without Mary. Clearly not without Mary. So this whole month of December is fruitful. I think we usually think of May as Mary's month, but I want you to consider the fact that possibly every month could be Mary's month. And we're going to do a little bit of determining why that is. If you lived in New Orleans, some of you might have in the past, we're heading towards Our Lady of Prompt Succor. So there are lots of names, lots of images of Mary. So now I'm getting personal. At one point I was praying. I know you had Sister Little, and I know she told you a lot about Jesuit spirituality or possibilities within it. I just want to talk about one element that Ignatius presented, which is it's like active imagination. It's immersion. Go sit in the scene, smell the smells, feel the wind, know whether the animals were really there or not. Do all of that. And I was sitting there with Mary, and the thing that struck me about her is perhaps, that's it, emphasis, perhaps the church has designated her in certain ways, and that hasn't allowed her the freedom that she deserves. So I want you to look on the back of the paper. Presto. I have removed all the let us praise, let us praise, let us praise, and just put the names, just the titles. This is the Litany of Our Lady. And I'd like you to take a moment and just read through it and see, does anything strike you personally? Oh, that's the way I see Mary. Or, oh, that's what I call her. Oh, wait a minute, something's missing here. So just take a moment and look at those titles. So, I was saying this was personal. I was looking at these titles when I was praying about Mary, not recently. This is over a period of time in the past. And I was struck by the fact that there was a universality to them. You know, holy, mother, virgin, queen. But there was also particularity to them. Queen of angels, or saints, or whatever. But for me, using my creative imagination and immersion, I couldn't find one that said Mary to me at the moment of my prayer. I like them all. I don't deny any of them. But, you know, for me, she's not a mystical rose. Or an Ark of the Covenant. I can get it. I understand it. But that's not who she was for me. So I found myself trying to say to her, who are you? And how are you speaking to me? And the thing that came to me was that in my lifetime, what I've learned about Mary is she was the one that keeps showing up. What do I mean by that? She showed up for people in need. She showed up for children. She showed up in wartime. She showed up in famine. But they're not in here. And history is where Mary is still living. We all believe in the communion of saints. We know that there's not a separation, and that love goes beyond all those boundaries. So, for me, Mary was on earth. She gave her yes. She bore a child out of wedlock. She raised her son, the Son of God, each day. Imagine that. A young woman raising the Son of God each day. She helped him become the person that we know. And to do that, she had to let him go. To let him lead his life. While she, at some point, widowed, made her way with family members and watched from a distance. It would appear that Mary didn't have an active role in Jesus' ministerial life. I said appears. But remember, she formed him. How did he know to break bread if he hadn't watched his mother? And then we meet her again at the time of his death. Jesus from the cross tells John to take his mother and care for her. That's why the picture Pauline Perdrau has is at John's house. Because that's where Mary lived after Jesus died. And as a matter of fact, as a little aside, John is the only apostle who did not get martyred. Interesting. She made sure that John would be there for her. The cultural norms of and times to a degree dictated the role of women. Yes, there were women who followed Jesus and they provided for him in so many ways. That wasn't Mary's role. She had provided for him in developing him as he grew. And here we sit in a school where everyone is developing the children to grow into the persons that we want them to be. But when Mary died, this was my insight. When Mary died, she left behind the cultural norms. She left behind history. And she was free in a way that she had never been able to be. So we can see in the titles given by the church that they recognize her presence. And to a degree, they reap honors on her. But what I want you to look at is that about 1,500 years ago, that's a long time, to recognize that Mary started her active ministry. She decided to insert herself into this world. Yesterday, I think, in 1531, a brief yesterday ago, Juan Diego met Mary in Tepeyac. She was gentle and clear and telling him to go, imagine this, to the ecclesial leader and tell him to build a church. Sounds like her son, you know. Juan Diego was a simple soul in a pretty forgotten part of his locality. He had no more religion than some of the folks Jesus met and talked to. But Mary, pregnant Mary, it's the only time that we have an apparition of Mary when she's pregnant. Pregnant Mary comes and says to him, you need hope. You need a center. In her final apparition, she emblazoned her own image on Diego's tilma, saying, in effect, I'm your mother, your protector, and you and your people need this center. And this is the first active role of Mary in the mission of Jesus that the church acknowledges. But that is 1531. So when you look at the titles, Virgin Most Venerable, Seat of Wisdom, now we get to see it in action, in the coming. Mary appeared in Poland, did you know that? In 1578, in Lithuania in 1608, in Paris in 1830. She appeared in Lourdes to Bernadette Soubirous in 1858. Her message was, pray. Pray for sinners. Why? Why then? Why that history? What happened in that moment that she felt compelled to get to work, to show up? France was in the throes of losing its democratic principles. Schools were censored. Yet again, Mary's appearance comes to somebody without standing, without power, to a 14-year-old girl. It's funny. God seems to pick on young people. Maybe he feels he can get in. Watch your children and your grandchildren. And as with Juan Diego, she asks her to pray, to go to the authorities and present the lady's desire for a church to be built. And Mary gives her her name. I am the Immaculate Conception. It's not like the people of Tepeyac gave her name, Our Lady of Guadalupe. This time, Mary gives her own name to Bernadette. She also gives a stream near the grotto of rocks where she appeared. You have a grotto here, don't you? I thought so. And many cures have happened there because people have believed that she came, that she showed up, that she was present. It sort of reminds me with the grotto of Moses, you know. Get across the river. John the Baptist, get into the river. I mean, we're progressing. Come on, bring them to the river. That's the thing. So Mary showed up in other parts, France, Italy, the Czech Republic, Poland again, usually to people on the fringes of society, usually children, the poor, and definitely the powerless. I'm Irish. In 1879, she appeared to a large group. They were leaving church. Imagine that. And there were the villagers in Knock, Ireland. This is the only appearance where she appeared to a whole group of people. And she never said a word. She didn't have to. They were experiencing the potato famine. They were experiencing death all around them. And she just made herself present. She was with them. She was there for them. So many times, that's all we can be. With them, for them. Pope Francis has said that the message of Knock is about the value of silence for faith. That you can stand with somebody in silence and know what love is. I'm sure you've had that experience. In 1917, we're getting into a little closer to our time, at Fatima in Portugal, Mary again brought the message of her son to earth, and this time she chose Lucia and Jacinta and Francisco to carry her plea. Okay? Children, a boys and girls school. 2 girls and 1 boy. The message of Fatima is important again because of its direct relationship to the history, to the moment in time. The 20th century was tortured by the spirit of revolt against God and turning brother against brother. And this was clearly demonstrated by the huge changes that have been taking place in Russia and its former satellites and would be seen in World War I. Do you hear any echoes? You are the children of Mary. You've got to appear. This is our time to show up, to get her here. She asked the children to pray the rosary for peace, the prayer that can change the world. Calling, 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 calling. It may be repetitive, but it is incessant because we know we do not have peace. She also asked them to get spiritually healthy. How do that? Penance and reparation. See what you can do to change what seems to be failing. Let her be the guide. Her message was, prayer can save the world. But she came and made it present. Mary seems to be able to take up the mission of Jesus here on earth over and over again. She never had a chance on earth, but she sure has one now. It's she who shows up, she who challenges and cares, she who longs for the coming of the kingdom with such love that she would skip down here on this divided, polluted, needy earth and say, I need to remind you of something. You seem to have lost the message. We need to get back to business here, the business of love. Love that can conquer all. And it's not to dismiss suffering. My son died on a cross, she says. But it is to love through that. She might not have had a chance while she lived, but she's lost no time since then. At least that we've known that the church has acknowledged it. I think if you look again at the litany, many of the titles, they put her in a position of being with an understanding and calling for a better life. But they're sort of set, cause of our joy. Take a moment and think to yourself, have you ever had the experience of Mary being the cause of your joy? It's like the apparitions turn these titles into lived experiences. And it's the lived experiences that I think will build you up as children of Mary. If you sit down with her and say, when have you appeared in my life? What has been your message to me? How am I supposed to do that? Oh, that reminds me. That's what I said when the angel came. How am I supposed to do that? Okay, you got the message. You're children of Mary. She's teaching all of us how to ask the right questions, and then say yes. And I think that Mater the Elder does this. She looks like she's finishing up. You'll notice that, and if you were a student of mythology, you'd really notice it. It's like the fates cutting the last part of the thing that they were working on. But Mater the Younger has her eyes down. Well, she's pregnant, or she's going to be, and that's something. It changes your body. It changes everything in you. And you must be wondering about that and dreaming about that and hoping about that. She's still, well, once she gets pregnant, she probably won't be still for very long. But anyway, all of that is there. But in Mater the Elder, not only does the color change, which I have some feelings about, but I think it makes it impactful. But she's looking up. She's looking outward. She's gone through life. And I think if you use your imagination, if you sit down sometime today, sometime this week, sometime before Christmas, sit down with Mary, however you picture her, and say to her, would you come and sit with me for a bit? See who shows up. See what Mary is really calling you, me, to. And how might we do that? And what questions will we ask of her? Because I think Children of Mary is the title that Jesus has. He's the child of Mary. So we're all in this together. And it's really important to expand however you see her, because she's changing. If you think about how you might have seen your mother, or whoever mothered you, and think about how you see her now, whether she's on this earth or not on this earth, how you see her now, it changed because you've changed. And if we don't let Mary change, it's like a family that's not really together. We're always going to be children of Mary. But just like with Jesus, we have to grow up. We have to be sent out. We have to do the work of love. We have to be the hands and the heart and the feet now. And for me, so this was my insight, in case I haven't been clear. It's been a time since I've been teaching. My insight was, if you sit down with Mary and talk to her, she'll talk back. She'll be there. She may just grab your hand. She may just pat it and say, simmer down, just breathe. You've got to get through today, you've got to get through tomorrow, just breathe. Come back in a week. We have to grow with her. She has to be someone. She cannot be a statue. That's idolatry, in a way. If she's our mother, you don't want to just have a statue of your mother. You want to remember. You want to remember. You've got to bring it into your whole membering of your body, your whole self. So, for what it's worth, Children of Mary is an extraordinary title. It's an extraordinary journey. It's an extraordinary invitation. And I'm glad you've all taken it up. I think that's splendid. And I know that it's possible because Mary always came to the poor, to the disenfranchised, mostly women here, but disenfranchised. And today we have to be Mary in the world, to everybody that we meet, to the way we talk. Sometimes it's to listen, not to talk. To the way that we nurture the life of the Lord within us, and that we watch as he's been sent out and we learn from him how to be a different kind of mothering. And so that's what I have to offer, is the difference between maybe the one side of the paper and the other side of the paper. The litany is wonderful in its own right, and I'm an English teacher, so I like the poetry of it, but it's not personal to me. And Mary has got to be personal. She's got to be your friend, your connection, not just to pour petitions out. You know, sometimes in Mater we put we put all the little notes in Mater's lap and want her to take care of all of it. Well, maybe you're the lap. You got to listen for those petitions, and you got to start taking care of them, because that's what's needed. That's what people are calling for. Maybe a date to the prom, but you know, just keep working on it. Just, you know, you never know what's all in Mary's lap, and you don't know what's going to fall in your lap. So I suggest to you that this latter part of Advent, that you spend some time with Mary, that you enjoy her, that you ask her, what's it like being an apparition? What's it like having agency when on earth you felt like, well, you never even asked the question because that's a different word and a different time and a different culture and everything else, but I bet you she felt it. I bet you she felt it. So what's it like having agency? And then claim yours. Claim yours as a child of Mary. Claim yours as a sister, a brother of Jesus. Claim yours and live it. So happy Advent, and blessings on all that you hold, whether it's joys or sorrows, at this time. And show up. That's my bottom line. Mary, Jesus has not really had many apparitions at all. Mary has. She keeps showing up. So that's my message. Show up. Thank you.